Okay, right. We'll start with the paper. Okay, right. So after the break, we are back. We'll start with revision paper number 3. Okay. So we'll start with this paper. I think I should be able to finish in, let's say, around 45 minutes. Maybe can finish a little early also. We'll see. Okay, right. So revision paper number 3, question number 1. Now remember, guys, you won't get a question as big as question number 1. But from these 3 economic systems and the 3 problems, there is a very common question that comes. Sometimes they ask you distinguish how a market and a command economy answers the what to produce question. Sometimes they ask, okay, answer how a command economy answers the 3 problems. So I put everything together and I made one big question. So you're not going to get a question as big as this, but there are 9 sections. No, in your paper you can see there are 9 boxes. So those 9 boxes, no, at least 1 or 2 of it they can highly test. So we'll discuss, guys. I'll send you all the typed answer also at night today, right? Maybe I might not be able to send it right after class. I have some small things to adjust. After this, I have my 2025 class. Before around 10 o'clock, I'll send you all the answers. Okay. But for now, we'll just discuss. Right. We'll start with a market economic system. Right. That is the first box that is there in your tip. About a market economic system. Right. Okay. How does a market economic system answer the what to produce question? How do they answer this guy? The what to produce. What are the key words that you have to highlight? You need to start with saying a market economic system answers the basic economic problem of what to produce using the price mechanism. Yes, that price mechanism word has to definitely be there in your answer, guys. You need to say they answer the basic economic problem of what to produce using the price mechanism. Then you can say, in other words, they will produce. You know what they will do? They will look at the relative prices, right? Relative prices in the product market. Now, what does that mean, guys? That means they compare and see. They compare and see, if I supply this product, okay, I can sell it at this much. I can get this much of a profit. If I supply this, price is this much, I can get this much of profit. So they compare the relative prices in the product market, and then what do? They choose what? They choose the most profitable, the most profitable goods and services. They choose to supply the most profitable goods and services. So this has to be in your answer, guys. So you need to highlight that in a market economic system, the economy uses price mechanism, and then they compare the relative prices. Relative prices means they compare the prices and see. If I now, for example, I will see, if I teach business studies, I can earn 3,000 a month. Okay, if I teach econ, 2,500 a month. If I do, let's say, London A-level classes, I can earn 5,000 a month. So I will compare, this price this much, this price this much, this price this much. And then I will see, if I do this, I'll get this much of a profit. That's what you say. They compare the relative prices. They look at the relative prices in the product market. And after that, they choose the most profitable goods and services. So they go and supply the most profitable. They don't care whether this good is harming the environment or good for the society. They don't care. If cigarettes is the one that is most profitable, that is the one giving the most profit, they'll go and supply cigarettes, guys. That's how a market economy answers the what to produce question. Then can you tell me, how does a market economy answer the how to produce? Because I'll give you all answers, don't worry. Okay, the typed answers are there. I will share that with you. How do they answer this question? How to produce? What is the again the keyword that you have to talk about? Okay? You have to say again using price mechanism. You have to mention this price mechanism. Using price mechanism, what happens? They look at the relative prices in the factor market, right? They do what? They look at the relative prices in the factor market. What is the factor market, guys? Factor market is where you have labor, capital, and all. So now they go and see, if I use labor to produce my good, cost is 50,000. If I go and produce this using capital machines, cost is 30,000. So they look at the relative prices, capital key, the labor key, they look at that. And then what do, guys? They choose what? They choose, right, the cheapest, right? The cheapest production method, which gives them the highest profit. The cheaper the method, higher the profit. Now, guys, you all know that when the cost comes down, the profit is higher. So they go and choose what? The cheapest method that increases their profit. So that is how a market economic system answers the problem of how to produce. Then the final question, guys. How does a I'll put it on top here since I don't have space. How does a market economic system answer the question whom to produce, guys? How do they do this? For this, you know what they do? They look at the relative, again, you need to say using price mechanism, that has to be their keyword, right? Using price mechanism, you know what they do? They look at mechanism, right? Sorry, my spellings are gone there, no? Keyword this, right? Using price mechanism, okay? They look at the product market, factor market, both, and you know what they do? They provide their goods to whoever who has the purchasing power. They look at the price using the price mechanism by analyzing the product and factor markets both to whoever who has the purchasing power. That's the other keyword that you have to highlight, right? So whoever who has the purchasing power can get the goods in a market economy. Now, in a command economy, they'll try to distribute it equally. No, market economy, nothing like that. If I have money, if I am rich enough to buy all the goods, I can go and buy it. Because simply based on purchasing power, whoever who has it can go and get it. That's how it will work with whom to predict. I'll send you all the answers on the group. But now remember, you all don't have to write the exact answer that I have typed in the answer sheet. But as long as these keywords, these key messages are there, you will get your full answer. Please practice writing. It's a very important question that you get. Okay. This is a market economic system. Shall we, any questions, guys, on this? Market economy? Are you all okay? Fine. Okay. Then let's move to the second one. A command economic system, or we call this a planned economic system. Command, or we'll call it a planned economic system. Right. Can you tell me, how does a command economic system, we'll start with the first question, how do they answer the question of, not how, what to produce? How do they answer this question? How do they answer the question of what to produce? What's the keyword that you have to say? There we said price mechanism. Then here we need to say what? A command economic system answers this problem using the planning mechanism, right? How do they do this then, guys? Using the planning mechanism, what do? They do something called what? They do something called the input-output analysis. What do? They do something called a input output analysis. What does that mean? That means now a planned economy, they have their resources, and that's called inputs: land, labor, capital, entrepreneurs. So they see, okay, with these inputs, what and what can I produce? What are my outputs? What is the ones that is giving the greatest social? Okay, if I produce this, it's going to give a benefit like this for the society. If I use these inputs and produce this, it's going to give these benefits. So they do something called input output analysis, and do what? They produce the goods, right? They produce the goods that give the highest social wealth. That's how they don't care about profits and all, guys. They don't care, make a profitable. No. As long as it's giving the best benefit to the public, the highest social welfare, that is what they will actually go and produce. Is that okay? Safe now. Then, next question. How to produce? How to produce? How does a command economic system answer this? Again, you have to highlight the keyword using planning mechanism. So using planning mechanism, what will they do? Using planning mechanism, right? They will decide on a production method that gives the fullest benefit to the public. What would they do, right? They will decide on a production method, right? A production method. Now, remember, how to produce is about choosing between capital intensive and labor intensive, right? So they will decide on a production method that does what? That gives the fullest benefit or the highest benefit to the public. Let me explain what does this mean, guys. Now, some of y'all get this wrong. Some people say, command economic system, how to produce, they use labor intensive. No, right? Now, they will see. For example, okay, if we use capital to produce this good, okay, what kind of benefit does it give to the public? If we use labor, what type does it give? Now, for example, let's say now during COVID, so many people have lost jobs. Which would they use, guys? Labor intensive or capital intensive? Let's say during COVID, so many people have lost jobs. Then if the government is deciding on a what method to produce the goods, which method do you think will give the highest benefit to the public? Is it producing the good using capital, or hiring people and giving them jobs and producing it using labor intensive? What do you all think, guys? Think. During COVID, so many people have lost jobs. Now the government is deciding on producing some product. So what should they do? Should they get more and more machines and produce it? Or should they go labor intensive and, create more jobs and give those people jobs and produce that good? What would they do, guys? They would go with labor intensive, right? Because that gives the highest benefit. Because right now, during COVID, so many people have lost jobs. So many people are falling into poverty. They don't have the money to satisfy their basic needs and wants. So in that context, if the government goes and produces using capital intensive, use more machines and all, that's not going to help the society, no? So even though labor intensive might be expensive sometimes, who knows, right? They might actually go and do what? They might actually hire people, give them jobs, and then produce the good. They might not use the machines or stuff. So that is what we say. They will select a production method that gives the fullest benefit to the public. So remember, it doesn't always have to be labor intensive. Whatever method that is giving the highest benefit to the public, they will do that. That's how they decide on how to produce. Then the last question. The last question we have is whom to produce. How do they do this? how does a command economic system answer the question whom to produce, guys? Now, whom to produce means how to distribute the goods. So what will they do? Again, you can highlight price mechanism, fine. Not price mechanism, planning mechanism, right? You can say planning mechanism. Okay, what will the government do, guys? They will look at doing what? How will they try to distribute the goods, guys? Will they distribute the goods to what? People with purchasing power, or will they try to do it somewhere else? Something else. How do they do it? They try to distribute the goods with equality, right? So they focus on, you know what? Equal distribution, right? To distribute the goods equally between the people. Now, how can they distribute the goods equally, guys? Can they go from house to house and say, here, this is your loaf of bread. This is your loaf of bread. Can they do that? Can they give everyone like that one loaf of bread, one loaf of bread? Or tell everyone, come and stand in a queue, I will give you one equally. They can't do that, right? Come on, in a country, can the government do something like that? Not practical, no, guys. So how does the government make sure that they distribute the total amount of goods and services in the country equally to the people? What do they do? You know what the government does? In order to do this, guys, government sets, right? Government sets the prices and wages. So just think if all of us in this class are earning 50,000 a month. Now, government has set a wage like that, right? So even the poor person, government is helping that person to get a bigger job. Rich people, government is charging taxes and bringing them down, right? Somehow, government will set the prices and the wages and try to make sure there is equality there. So just think, if all of us in the class here are earning 50,000, what does that mean? That means all of us can buy a equal amount of goods and services, right? I also can buy something worth 50,000. You also can buy something worth 50,000. Yeah. So that means there is equal distribution. No? Now in price mechanism, what happens? Market economy. Whoever who has the money, right? One person is earning 1 million, he can go and get a lot of goods and services. Some people are very poor, earning only 10,000 a month, they get a very small portion of the goods and services. But in a market, in a planned economy, it can't happen that way. Because why? Government is the one who sets the prices and the wages. Government tries to make sure there is fair prices, there is equal wages, and as a result, everyone gets an equal share of the goods and services. That's how the command economic system answers the whom to produce question. Okay, is that fine? Yes. Okay. Then, guys, the last one, right? Last one is what? A mixed economic system. Mixed economic economic system. Right. We'll look at this. I ordered a tempered glass for my iPad. It said a paper-like tempered glass. I don't know how it works now. It's when I write using this pencil, it's not very smooth. No, it's like, writing on a screen. Not very smooth. There was a thing on YouTube, but the original paper-like tempered glass was at around 15,000 or 20,000. I just searched on Ikman. There was a little bit of a cheaper one for 1,000 rupees. I ordered yesterday. I don't know how long it would take. Must try and see when that comes, because it's not very smooth to write on the screen. Right. So what do you think? How do you think market economy answers this what to produce question? A mixed economy. How do they answer this? So remember, guys, they answer it using both the price mechanism and the planning mechanism, but mainly using the price mechanism, right? Price and planning both are there. So you can say they answer this mainly using, right, mainly using the price mechanism. Okay. However, what happens? Even though they mainly use the price mechanism, there is government intervention, right? There is government intervention, and what does the government do? Government also, right? Government uses the planning mechanism, and government also provides certain goods and services. For example, look at Sri Lanka, mainly using the price mechanism. But government also comes and provides some goods and services, no, education, healthcare, transportation. Yeah. So government also influence. So remember, mainly using price mechanism, they will allocate and produce the most profitable goods and services. But however, there will be government intervention, right? And the government will also provide certain goods and services using the planning mechanism. So mostly the goods that the private sector is not adequately providing, right? Education, healthcare, transport, right? The public goods, like let's say street light, national defense, government will come and provide those. Then the next one, how does this happen? The how to produce, how to produce. Again, you can say what? You can say mainly using, right? Mainly using price, mainly using price mechanism. But what happens? Even though they mainly use the price mechanism, government will influence. How can the government influence? Government can say now, for example, let's say government wants more and more people to get jobs rather than using capital. So government will come and say, okay, right, if the private sector, if you use labor intensive techniques, I'll give you some subsidies. I'll give you some tax benefits, right? Maybe let's say you provide 10,000 jobs in this rural area. I'll give you next 5 years, no taxes. So, government can influence like that. So mainly using the price mechanism, they will select whatever method that is cheaper. However, what happens? Government will intervene. So government will intervene how things like subsidies to hire more and more people. They might give tax incentives, right? Government might do things like that. Okay. Then we have the final question, guys. Final question on whom to, right? Whom to produce. How does this work, guys? How does the whom to produce question get answered? Sorry, my connection was a little unstable. Right, I'm hoping you all can hear me now. Okay, so going to the final question. The final question is whom to produce. How does this get answered, guys? Again, same way, right? But it's the same way. Mainly using price mechanism, right? Mainly using price mechanism. But government will intervene for what? There is government intervention to make sure there is equal distribution. So how can the government intervene to make sure there is equal distribution? Government will charge. Now, government wants to make sure there is equal distribution. How? They will charge progressive taxes from the rich people. Right? They'll try to reduce the rich people's income. Yeah, they will charge progressive taxes. Okay, progressive taxes. Then they will have social protection for the poor, like pensions, samurdhi benefits, right? So social protection. Now, through these kind of things, they try to make sure that the distribution becomes somewhat fair. So remember, when we talk about a mixed economy, mainly price mechanism is dominant, but still we will have the government coming and intervening in different ways. Is that okay? That's how the three economic systems answer the three basic economic problems. You can get big questions from this. So make sure that you properly know this part. Okay. Now, practice. Then we'll quickly go through the other questions and wrap it up. Okay. Distinguish between a market and a planned economy, highlighting the key characteristics. All right, I'll come to the water thing at the end. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So, okay. What can we say about this? Yes, remember, when they say, now this is where your answer writing is important. When they say distinguish, okay, don't draw a table. Now, I know some of you all, like in O levels, still what you all do, you all say market economy, planned economy. You draw a table like this. You say price mechanism, planning mechanism, private ownership, public ownership. You don't do this anymore. You can do this if the question said differentiate. In A levels, econ paper, you don't get differentiate question. They tell you distinguish. So when they say distinguish, you need to write your answer in point forms. So I will give you now, you all know the differences, guys, so I'm not going to into detail, but I'll tell you one way how to write this. Okay, you have to write your answers like this. You have to say a market, I'll just give you 1 point, right? You'll write 4 points for ideally maybe 4 to 6 points, right? You can say a market economy, right? A market economy uses price mechanism to solve the basic economic problems, while a command economy, or we can say a planned economy, right? Planned economy uses the planning mechanism. Now, this is one proper nice point, guys. This is how you distinguish. There is another way to distinguish. I'll teach you all that later. But this is one way that you can distinguish. So ideally, you can write 4 to 6 points on the 6-mark question, maybe around 4 to 6 points like this. Or your answer for, now this is one way of putting the answer. Please don't draw tables. Huh? If they say differentiate, draw a table. But A-level econ, they won't say differentiate. They'll say distinguish. So when they say distinguish, you either write it like this, or you can write one big paragraph about a market economy, right? About a market economy, you can write a big paragraph. You can say a market economy is like this. They use price mechanism. There is private ownership, right? Self-interest is the motive, right? High amount of competition, no government involvement, right? To write a big paragraph. Then you should say, on the other hand, right? Now you write another big paragraph about a command economy. You can write that answer format as well. You can, then say, on the other hand, a command economy uses the planning mechanism to answer the basic economic problem. Resources are owned by the government. So then it has to be in 2 proper paragraphs like that. Or it has to be in the first page that I showed. Please don't draw a table and put that. Wrote the 2 definitions, market and command, then wrote the differences point form. Yeah, as long as it's properly there, it's okay. Is that clear, guys? The answer format. Now, these are not hard questions. These are questions that is easy, but you all don't write to get the full marks. That's what I want you all to write and practice. Okay. Then we'll go into question 3. Right. Good one. Explain the following concepts that relate to a market economy. Invisible hand, and the second one is having consumer sovereignty. I'll show you the answer. I don't have the final answers yet. I have to adjust these answers, right? So look at this, guys. Now, what is invisible hand? We say, okay, look at this. We are saying invisible hand is what? The unobservable. That means something that you can't see, unobservable. Market force that helps demand and supply in a free market to reach equilibrium automatically is called the invisible hand. Invisible hand is a unobservable market force that is helping to do what? Helping to make demand and supply reach equilibrium. So what is the thing that helps demand and supply reach equilibrium? The price, right? See, unit number 2. Here we say the invisible hand in a free market economy is the price. Who came up with this concept? This fellow called Adam Smith. He wrote a book in the 1800s called Wealth of Nature. Adam Smith is the father of economics, no? Right? Not me or not someone else. Father of economics is Adam Smith, right? He came up with this book called The Wealth of Nations. And he said, you know what? He said that in a free market economy, if the government doesn't involve or do anything, automatically based on price, which is the invisible hand, everything will work fine. If there is an excess of some good, price of that will come down. It will be solved. If there is a shortage of something, price of that will go up. That will be solved, right? So you don't have to have the government coming and putting taxes on the goods and setting minimum, maximum prices. You don't need those. So he said, there is this invisible force called the price that will automatically reach, right? That will automatically lead to the demand and supply making equilibrium. So you don't have to have government involvement. So based on their self-interest, consumers will buy more if the price is low, producers will supply more if the price is high. Right? So based on their self-interest, it will automatically match. You don't have to intervene. That is the story, guys, about the invisible hand. Then, what is consumer sovereignty? Yes, consumer sovereignty is that the consumer is the main person in the economy. So in a market economy, we say there is consumer sovereignty. What does that mean? That means the consumer is the main person. So the goods and services that the producers produce depends on what the consumers want. Now, in a command economy, guys, government produces and they force it on to the consumer. Market economy, in a market economy, right? What the consumer wants. So consumers can decide what they want, right? Consumers have the choice. So based on what the consumers want only, the producers will produce. So consumer is the most powerful person. That is what you call consumer sovereignty. See, consumers collectively determine the types of goods and services that are produced, the quantities in which they are produced, and the prices at which they are sold. So the consumer has the power to do this, right? Now, for example, let's say if consumers are not demanding for a good, they say, I don't want this. What does that mean? Price of it will go down. So it's the consumer who is even impacting the price. Got it? Okay. So consumer holds the ultimate power in shaping the economy through their purchasing decision. That is what you call consumer sovereignty. So remember, both of these concepts are connected to what? A market economy. So you need to know how to write for invisible hand, how to write for consumer sovereignty. Is that fine? Step? Questions, problems, issues? Okay, right, bit more to go. Then guys, question number 4. Question number 4 is asking, what are the disadvantages of price mechanism and justify if the government involvement is needed? Okay, so now for questions like this, guys, you should be able to break the question now. Remember last class I taught you how to break the question and identify. See, what are the main now what? What means you don't have to explain. What? What are the main disadvantages of price mechanism? So price mechanism, market economy. So what are the disadvantages? One, presence of income inequality. In a market economy, there are some people very rich, some people poor. There are income inequality. Then market economy doesn't provide public goods. We learn public goods in unit number 8. Things like, for example, street light. You can't make a profit out of those. No? So private sector won't provide. Therefore, government should be there, right? Government private sector fails to take external costs, that also will study in unit number 8, something called externalities. Okay, not needed for now. Then in certain situations, there can be monopolies, right? Then market instability, inflation, unemployment, right? All of those can happen. So those are what? Disadvantages in a market. They're asking, what are the disadvantages? So you can write that in point form. And then they're asking, justify whether, justify, that's the question verb. Justify whether government involvement is. That means you write in paragraph. See, now here in a paragraph format, I say, why is government involvement needed? See, we say government involvement is crucial to address the limitations. That means to address these problems, you have to have the government, right? To address the limitations of price mechanism. One is to help the income inequality. It helps balance income disparities. So government will come, they'll charge progressive taxes, right? That's one reason why the government should be there. Then these public goods and stuff, that market economy doesn't provide. So government has to come and offer these public goods. Then market economy doesn't consider these external costs. Then government has to come and take measures to manage these external costs, right? What are external costs? What are public goods? What are monopolies? Now, monopoly you would have learned in unit number 4, right? Externalities, public goods, unit number 8, guys. So even if you don't understand that 100% now, don't worry. Okay. So this paragraph talks about why is the government intervention needed. The explanation itself talks about everything, right? It talks about how social protection, preventing from poverty, right? All of that is there. So what's the question once again? Question is asking what are the disadvantages of price mechanism? Therefore, what justify, should there be government involvement? Should the government get involved in this market? So here I have given some reasons why the government should get involved. How many of you all wrote a good answer for this, guys? Something similar to what I have given. I'll send this answer sheet, but something similar, no? So I came up with a okay-ish answer. Yes, no? Right. Yes, what about this? Now I made the paper a little hard, right? Question 5. Income inequality has become a major concern for a country like Sri Lanka. Okay. Outline the methods by which the government in a mixed economy, now Sri Lanka is a mixed economy, could deal with the problem of income inequality. What is income inequality? Income inequality means some people are getting very high income, some people are getting very low income. There's a big gap between the rich and the poor. So what can the government do in a mixed economy? What can the government do? That's my question. So what are the answers, guys? 1, progressive taxes. We learn this in detail in unit number 8, right? What are progressive taxes? Where you charge the rich people higher amounts of tax, right? So now in Sri Lanka, income tax, right? People who are earning 100,000, below 100,000, no income tax. 100,000 to 140,000 people, they have to pay like around 4%. And people who are earning around 300, 400,000, they have to pay 36%. So higher income earners pay a higher percentage of tax. That's what you call a progressive tax. So that helps to bridge, no? That helps to bring the gap between the rich and the poor down. Then social welfare program. Now, that's another thing to reduce income inequality. Now, there are some people who are really poor, who don't have the money to satisfy their basic needs. So what does the government do for them? Government provides samurdhi payments. Now they are coming up with something called asvasuma, right? They are doing all of them. Then guys, minimum wage laws. Now, sometimes this happens in certain estates in Sri Lanka, right? Like the tea pluckers in Nuwara and all. So those people, right, they are not very educated, right? They are living in estates, very hard life. So what do these big, some firms, not all the firms, some tea firms, what do? They exploit these workers. They pay them, let's say, 200, 300 rupees a day. So what does the government do there? Government comes and sets a minimum wage. Say minimum you have to pay this fellow 750 a day or 1,000 rupees a day. So that also helps the poor person to increase their income, right? Right? Solves income inequality. Then promoting small and medium enterprises. Now, sometimes there are these big dominant firms, very big fellows, right? They are the ones ruling the industry and doing everything. And they are the ones getting all the profits, and those people are getting rich and rich. Small firms, they can't do anything. So then what can the government do? They can take measures to promote these small and medium enterprises. Then also finally, transparent economic policies, labor market regulations, all of these guys we'll talk about in detail in the upcoming units, right? So don't talk much about it, right? So remember, there is income inequality in a mixed economy. What can the government do? So these are certain things that the Sri Lankan government can do to do what, guys? To solve the income inequality problem. Is this okay? Yep. Fine. Yes. When they say outline, guys, you don't have to explain big paragraphs, but you have to like kind of like write the point and explain it in 1-2 lines. That is what outline means, right? So when they say outline, it doesn't have to be big paragraphs. Write the point, explain that in 1-2 lines. That's what outline means. Outline is a little bit more than state. State means just writing the small point. Outline means, now for example, if this question says state, then you can say implementing progressive taxes. That can be 1 point. That is state. Now see, when they say outline, how I gave the answer, I said progressive taxation, I put a dot, and I explained what that is in just 1 or 2 lines. No big paragraphs. Okay, that's outline. Question verbs are important. Okay. Then we'll go into this question. The one that we discussed, guys. Remember, we discussed this here. All market economies are capitalist economies, while all command economies are socialist economies. Do you agree? Yes or no, guys? Can we say that all market economies are capitalist economies and all command economies are socialist? If you all were listening during class, you can give me an answer. Yes or no? Do you all agree? Yes or no? Answer is no. Remember, I told you. So how do you start your answer? You start your answer while saying, right? Right? By explaining the criteria. You say, according to decision coordination mechanism, right? You allocate as market and command. So whoever who uses price mechanism, they are market. Whoever who uses the planning mechanism, they are called command economics. Then based on the ownership of property, right? Based on who owns the property, if it is the in a capitalist economy, it's the private sector. In a socialist economy, it's the public or the government, right? You can say that. And then you can say, usually, right? Usually, a economy that uses price mechanism will have private sector ownership. That means usually a market economy will be a capitalist economy, but it doesn't always have to be. So you can say there can be market economies that use, right, that has government ownership as well. There can be economies that use the price mechanism, but resources are owned by the government. So you need to highlight. Then you can say in another paragraph, you can say, look here, on the same side, right, command economies usually they have usually they are socialist. Usually government will own the resources. However, there can be certain command economies that use the price mechanism, that use the planning mechanism, but still resources are owned by the private sector. So you need to clearly explain that. I'll give you an answer, but I'm hoping you all understood the theory part, guys. So theory part you need to know, and you need to come up with the answer. I'll give you an answer as well. Yes, remember, at least if you have not wrote answers now, after ideally is for you all to write answers and come. Then only you all will learn on your own to think, because in A levels, you after looking at the answer, you don't get to write your answer, right? So I will send you the answer. After I send the answer, at least watch this now. You all attended the class also, no? At least go through that answer and write it in your own words. Don't just get a printout and keep it like that. That is not going to help. Okay. So look at the answers, write it in your own words. Those answers will be there, guys, from unit 2, 3 onwards. All the answers I'll put on my website also. So if you have paid the fees and registered, you can go and watch. But you don't have to get those printed, then you don't have to get all of that. Just look at that answer and see where you went wrong, make corrections in the red pen. So make sure that your answer is also a complete answer. That's the objective. Question number 7. Right. Yes. Can you tell me this, guys? Explain why is the Sri Lankan economy considered as a mixed economy? Why? Why is the Sri Lankan economy considered as a mixed economy? Why are we not a market or a plan? You can start off with defining what's a mixed economy, right? It's a 6-mark question. So you start off with defining. You can say, look here, a mixed economy is an economic system that uses both the price and the planning mechanism. So you can start off like that. Then you can say, similarly in Sri Lanka, and also has both the private and the public sectors. Similarly in Sri Lanka, you have what? You have the private sector who produces based on price mechanism. They produce the most profitable goods. And also you have the government, right? Who, using planning mechanism, they come and provide public goods. Government provides education, healthcare, right? They do that. And similar way you can say, right? Government also intervenes with these, right? Government intervenes with by charging taxes. Government intervenes by providing social protection like pensions, samurdhi benefits, Mahapola scholarships, right? Government does that. So you can put all of those, and what you need to prove, guys, you need to put some real examples. Don't just vomit the theory. You need to put some real examples of how in Sri Lanka that there is both price and planning mechanism, how the private sector and the public sector are both working together and running the economy. That's what you need to highlight. I'll give you an answer, right, which you can have a look at, but make sure you write. So how is Sri Lanka a mixed economic system? Then question number 8, guys. Final 2 questions. Okay, can you at least give me an answer? This is MCQ, guys. Okay, if you have not fallen asleep, give me an answer. What can you say? Which of the following is the main characteristic of a social market economy? Social market. Private ownership of resources, public ownership of all resources, absence of a regulatory framework for the functioning of the price system. They ask me the main characteristic. Strong state role in the provision of welfare services, using centralized planning to resolve basic economic questions. Which one is the main characteristic of a social market economy? I told you a social market is very similar to a market economy, but government intervenes. Government intervenes for what? Government is a state. Now, first one is a characteristic. Now, private ownership of resources is a characteristic. But is it the main characteristic? Is that what we call a social market economy? No. That's why I see main characteristic. So, first one, private ownership of resources is a characteristic of this thing. I also agree with you. But that's not the main one. So, what is the main characteristic? Number 4, right? The main characteristic is there is a very strong role of the government to provide welfare services. Welfare services like what? Welfare service like pensions, samurdhi benefits, free education, right? These are all welfare services where the government comes because government feels there are some people in poverty, right? Social injustice. So government comes and provides samurdhi. Government feels there are some retired people who don't have money. So government comes and helps these people with pension. So that is what you call a social market economy. Okay. Then the final question for the day. That's there are 2. Right. Right. We can, I think, this thing. What is a social market economy? What we just discussed. A social market economy is very similar to a market economic system. However, government will intervene for what? Government will intervene to promote social justice. So you can give an example. In situations where human rights are violated, there would be government intervention. Government would intervene to promote the vulnerable parties in an economy, such as the retired, the ones in poverty, the in situations of natural disasters, the people who are unemployed. Government would intervene to help them. That's what you call a social market economy. Then how does this differ from a socialist market? What did I say a socialist market economy is? A socialist market economy is an economic system that runs on the socialist ideology, right? Where the government owns all the resources and where they kind of run. Yeah. So you need to highlight that. You say this is very similar to a market, but there is things like this. Maybe you can give some examples also, no problem. And that will give you your 4 marks. Yes, you all need to. Now I know you all know the theory, but remember, questions are not very direct. They twist the question here and there and give. So you have to write answers, guys. If you don't write answers, you can't get things done. In revision classes, I don't do a count because we don't have the time. Okay, we'll do that only in the theory class. Right. The final question. Can you all give me an answer for this, guys? What are the main functions of an economic system? It's a very easy question, but most of you all sometimes get it wrong. What are the main functions of an economic system? Is it production, distribution, and consumption? Remember, guys, this is where you all get it wrong, right? The main functions of an economic system is to solve the basic economic problems, right? Is to solve the basic economic problems. So the one main function is deciding what to produce, right? In what quantity, right? You all know the 3 problems, no? Right? What quantity? Deciding on how to produce, deciding on whom to produce. Those are the main functions of an economic system. I purposefully put it. It's an easy question, but most of you all get it wrong. Right? Most of you all write production, distribution, consumption. You all write things like that. So when they ask you what are the main functions of an economic system, say that the main functions of an economic system is to decide or is to answer the basic economic problem. Number 1, they have to decide on what to produce in what quantity, deciding on how to produce, deciding on whom to produce. Those are the main functions of an economic system. Right? So you have a 3-mark question there. Okay. So what I want you to do is, once the class is done, I'll send you the answers. Make sure that you make your short note, right? Get this focus area done and dusted. If there are any areas that you're not very good of and all of it, put that in the comment section. Okay? That is for you all. Comment section is for you. Any areas that you have to look. So make a note. Say, this part, okay, classification, economic systems, you don't know. Property rights, you're not very sure. Okay, so you just put some comments and keep on areas that you should focus more, and then make a nice short note in this page. If the page is not enough, the other side of the other page is also there. Back end, use that also. Make a nice short note, or you can, at the bottom of this page, you can paste another page and you can, roll it over like that. Freedom is yours, and at the end, nicely put it in your file and keep it. And then next week you move to the next paper. Okay, so I'm hoping that you all remember what I told at the beginning of the class also about the whole revision program and how it goes. So with that, we can call it a day. Next week, we'll have revision paper 4. Right? So Hafsa, you can stay with your question. I'll clarify it for you. Anyone else, if you all have questions, you can stay and clarify. If not, thank you for coming. Theory people, I'll see you all on Wednesday. Others also, guys, you all can join for free on Wednesday, where we are starting unit number 5. And then you can see how it goes. Okay, see you all. Have a nice night.